International law expert Livingstone Wechi joins me via Zoom from Abuja. Good to have you join us, Livingstone.
Thanks for having me.
So we're seeing optimism from both sides, and it's quite similar to the one on display during initial talks in Oman earlier in the month. Is that an indication that Iran is weak and ready to do a deal, as stated by President Trump?
Well, it's more or less both sides of a coin speaking different languages. The history of Iran and the US has been marred by turbulence and complexities dating back to too many decades ago, from the coup backed by the CIA that toppled the elected government of Iran and the installation of a US ally, in quotes, and the subsequent hostage crisis where American citizens were held hostage at the US embassy for 444 days, and subsequent shooting down of Iranian passenger plane in 1988, where about 290 passengers died. So it's been a history back and forth. And remember that during the Cold War, America and Iran were very, very close allies. But I think the grape became sour when interests began to split. So, but you cannot rule out the fact that there is a weakening of the current regime, because the recent protests that greeted Iran as a result of the resurgence of the conflict between America and Iran helped to raise further questions about the legitimacy of that administration. And if it must survive, there must be some concessions, because Trump has made it clear that military intervention is not negotiable should diplomacy fail. Even though the Iranian side has said that their hands are on the trigger for a reprisal should the United States attempt to attack Iran. But the point is, Iran is at a disadvantage, but America is also taking some caution, because you're dealing with a state that has nuclear possibilities and can run amok to explode and implode all at the same time. So it's a thing of caution, because the regime currently in place sees the US as an imperialist, oppressive force.
Absolutely, Livingstone. I want to say what you're saying. Clearly, just from what you've explained, there is a climate of, I mean, just from history as well, there is a climate of mistrust hanging over these efforts at diplomatic talks. And I'm wondering how difficult that will make this negotiation.
No, of course, when trust has broken down, you remember that part of the distrust came as a result of the CIA-backed regime change of, I think, 1954, thereabouts, where another regime that is believed to be loyal to the United States was installed. Now, that protected America's oil interests in Iran, because there is an oil interest, even though America's argument is that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism and a threat to regional stability, whereas Iran, in its current state, sees the US as an imperialist oppressor. So I think there is a major worry about the issue of America's interest at this time, because Iran does not have a reason to trust the US anymore. But the US has an upper hand in the current circumstance. And because Iran also has multiplied its record of human rights abuse, America is cashing on that to justify its invasion of Iran. And it is almost too late in the day for Iran to prove otherwise its current human rights records, because one of the vital points that super states have used to invade weaker states, in quotes, or reckless states, in quotes, is the question of human rights abuse. They will always play it up, and when that is justified, you can hardly question that type of interference, as the US is currently doing. You see the recent review or reversal of policies concerning women in Iran as a result of US intervention, all in a bid to prove a point that, look, we are taking steps to change the way we are viewed. But then it has become so deep-seated that trust has become a major question.
But Livingstone, the Ayatollah seems to be, striking a different tone. Do you think that that's just posturing, or some of this rhetoric could make the negotiation also very difficult process?
Let me say this: that is power play. That is power play, power at play. They will not come to say to you that they are surrendering. Okay, but of course, the US has military posts along the Gulf sides of the Arabian Peninsula, and that axis. US has several military posts that place a watch and check over Iran. And over the years, Iran has always been at a disadvantage because of the US support of Iraq during the Iraq-Iran conflict. So the United States will continue to dominate and impose its will upon Ayatollah. But Ayatollah is a revolutionary. So he would hardly give up or make tones that will send a wrong signal that express some form of fear or weakness. Such individuals never surrender. They never surrender except in the cause where the lives of their people have become so much more at stake. But to surrender as a result of ideology reverse, that you will never expect from Ayatollah, because they have become so indoctrinated in what they believe, in their opinion about the US, that no amount of threat, it's so strong that the ideology they work with has become a life or death ideology. They believe that death is not a reason why they must review their ideology. So he will maintain that stance, no doubt.
So Iran is unwilling to even discuss its ballistic missile program. What are some of the red lines you think could be, or some of the issues or matters you think could become red lines in this negotiation?
Well, part of the challenge Iran is having with the US is the succession of sanctions that have destabilized and brought some form of fault lines within its development plan. So Iran stands risks of facing tougher sanctions. In this type of negotiation, there will be some threats of denial, threats of isolation, which no state desires to be put into, as it were. So I think that more pressure will be mounted. They will be compelled eventually to negotiate the non-negotiable areas, to review the areas, like they call it, the no-go areas will become a go-to or to-go areas eventually. They will almost have no choice, not because they don't have a right, but you see, there are international laws that govern weaponry, ballistic missiles, and all the, what do you call it now, the other forms of extreme weapons. There are laws that govern them. So the Iran, yes, has said, well, we can only discuss the issue of the nuclear energy, but we will not discuss others. But if it is in the option or in the opinion of America that they want to discuss those areas that will regulate Iran's hold or reason for sustaining their stance in their relationship with the US, America will place them under more pressure through sanctions. And I think there will be ground shifting eventually. Because as it stands today, Iran is losing a whole lot of support base because America is also building further alliances and laying hold on Iranian neighbors that will compel Iran, because where do they run to? And let me say this about the current trend of international relations and politics. If you think China will come to your rescue, you're lying. Or Russia will come to your rescue. They can issue statements condemning what the US is doing, but Russia and China will never be on an arms collision course with the US. So everybody has to negotiate his survival at this point.
Absolutely. And we know that President Trump is going to be in China, I think sometime this month or next month. So he's also looking to strike better relations with China as well. So thank you so much for your time. International law expert, Livingstone Wechi.